My mother cried happy tears that morning, thrilled that after so many broken relationships, I had finally found someone who would stand by my side forever. Or so we believed. My veil was pinned to perfection, my lace gown trailing behind me, every bead shimmering with promise. Meanwhile, I glowed with the naive assurance of a bride who believed in forever. Then, just as the officiant quietly asked if we were ready to begin, my fiancé, Gregory Martin, stepped away from me, walked to the side aisle, and confessed he couldn't go through with the wedding. He wanted someone else, someone who had suddenly re-entered his life mere weeks ago. The hush that followed was the sort you feel in your bones. The officiant looked stricken. My mother gasped in the front pew. A ripple of confusion and shock passed through the crowd. My friends, my father, everyone stunned. As for me, my breath caught in my throat, and a dizzy sensation filled my head as though the floor might vanish beneath my feet. Gregory offered no further explanation. He just walked away, leaving me in my white gown, ringless, humiliated under the gaze of 100 silent onlookers. The tension in that sacred place crackled, and I felt tears stinging my eyes. The world blurred for a moment, my chest tightening with a panic I'd never known. All those memories, all the love letters we'd exchanged, the milestones we reached as a couple, they fluttered through my mind like fragile petals in the wind, turned to dust in an instant. Then, in the midst of that heartbreak, an impulse seized me. Maybe it was desperation or a rebellion against the cruel finality of that moment. My eyes scanned the crowd, a sea of faces contorted with pity, confusion, or concealed schadenfreude. And there, near the back, stood a tall stranger dressed in a crisp suit, watching me with an expression I couldn't decipher. I didn't know him, not even his name, yet something in his composure, his calm presence amid the chaos, stirred me. Without thought or plan, I stepped forward, my voice trembling as I spoke words that would alter the course of my life. "Will you marry me instead?" The hush deepened. Gasps rippled through the chapel. My mother's eyes bulged in disbelief. At first, I thought the stranger would flee or laugh in my face. But he did neither. He simply stared at me, his brow furrowed. Time seemed to freeze around us. He took a hesitant step forward, scanning my tear-stained face, the officiant's stunned expression, and the chapel full of gaping guests. Finally, he nodded as though he'd made a decision. "Yes," he said softly. "Yes, I will." In that moment, the tension in the chapel exploded into frantic whispers, exclamations, and murmured questions. And thus, my wedding day became the start of a story more extraordinary, and far more complicated, than any vow I could have prepared for. Chapter 1. Shattered Promises. I'm Natalie Carter, 32, a woman who until that morning had believed she was about to settle into a comfortable marriage with a man I'd known for 5 years. Gregory and I met in college. We'd shared a coffee, a class, and a spark that I thought would last a lifetime. Over the years, we built a story together, though cracks had begun to show recently. An unspoken distance in his eyes, the phone calls he took in private, an apology that never quite formed on his lips. But I ignored the warning signs, chalking them up to pre-wedding stress. We had a life planned, a small cottage near the outskirts of town close to my mother's orchard. We were going to travel, adopt a rescue dog, maybe have kids if we felt ready. I believed we were building a stable, cozy future. Until that morning, I never suspected his heart lay elsewhere. How do you articulate the heartbreak of realizing, in front of your loved ones, that the person you trust most has decided you aren't enough? My heart felt like it cracked open, an immense emptiness roaring inside. I should have screamed, cried, or collapsed on the chapel floor. But instead I turned around and locked eyes with the unknown man in the last row, someone I'd never met in my life. He was tall, with broad shoulders and dark hair combed neatly. I noticed a slight stubble along his jawline, giving him a faint air of roguishness. He looked like he might be in his mid-30s, wearing a tailored navy suit that hinted at a refined taste. When I asked him to marry me, I was acting on pure adrenaline. The hush that fell over the chapel was deafening. My mother, Harriet Carter, nearly fainted. My father, who traveled from 2 states away to attend my wedding, stared wide-eyed, uncertain whether to intervene or watch in stunned fascination. Friends whispered, some with pity, others with disapproval. I could almost hear them thinking, "Poor Natalie has snapped." But in that moment, all that existed for me was the shocking clarity that life as I knew it was gone. If Gregory didn't want me, if he had chosen to chase after an old flame, I needed some wild, desperate gesture to break the final tether to my illusions. I needed to prove to myself and perhaps to the world that I wasn't going to be left sobbing at the altar with no choice but heartbreak. So I proposed to a stranger. When he answered with that single word, yes, I wasn't sure if I'd dreamed it. But his voice carried across the stillness like the strike of a match in the dark, igniting something new. The officiant coughed, looking thoroughly flabbergasted. My mother rushed forward, grabbing my arm with trembling hands. "Natalie," she hissed, "have you lost your mind?" I opened my mouth but no words came out, only a sob that threatened to break free. The stranger advanced toward the front, drawing the gaze of every pair of eyes in the chapel. When he reached me he paused, meeting my confused, tear-laden stare. Something about his calmness eased my trembling. He extended his hand. "Nathaniel Harrison," he introduced himself gently. "I suppose we should at least know each other's names." A hysterical laugh bubbled up in my throat but I stifled it. The officiant, an elderly reverend named Brewer, cleared his throat. "Miss Carter," he began, voice shaky, "what is happening here? Are you certain you wish to proceed with this man?" Time slowed. I felt everyone's stares burning my skin. My mind spun with the enormity of what I was about to do. But the alternative, accepting Gregory's betrayal and slinking away, felt like dying on the spot. I turned my gaze to the arched windows, sunlight streaming in ribbons of gold, as if nature itself offered me a final lifeline. I swallowed. "Yes," I managed, though my chest was tight. I do." Then I turned to Nathaniel, noticing how steady his dark eyes were. "Will you marry me?" The question floated again, more softly. Nathaniel looked at me for a long beat, as though searching for any sign that I might be joking. Then he gave a resolute nod, a small, almost sad smile gracing his lips. "I will." The hush in the chapel fractured into murmurs and gasps. My mother clutched her pearls, my father muttered something under his breath, and I realized that in the swirl of confusion, nobody quite knew how to stop me, or how to save me. Maybe they understood that I was beyond saving in that instant. "Very well," the Reverend said, voice trembling. "We shall proceed." The rest of that ceremony was a blur of improbable vows, stammered responses, and a tidal wave of adrenaline that kept me upright. Nathaniel and I exchanged rings. Ironically, Gregory's ring slid onto Nathaniel's finger. My own ring, the one Gregory had chosen for me, remained. It felt cold, like a strange piece of jewelry unconnected to its original promise. I flinched as the officiant pronounced us husband and wife, fear and disorientation swirling in my stomach. And just like that, my life changed course in an unpredictable instant. The guests stirred, uncertain whether to clap or remain silent in horror. My mother's tears shifted from sorrow to baffled fury. My father looked faintly amused, as if I'd inherited his notorious rebellious streak. Meanwhile, Nathaniel stepped closer, leaning down to gently press a courtesy kiss to my cheek. The contact burned with an unexpected warmth, though neither of us could muster any real passion. When it was all over, I found myself standing beside a man I'd known for less than an hour, wearing a wedding band that wasn't intended for him. My brand new husband. My chest constricted with the realization of how insane this all was. I was no victim of reason, no champion of level-headedness that day. But part of me, perhaps the part that shattered when Gregory walked away, felt triumphant in its defiance. If life refused to follow the script I'd written, then I would tear up the script altogether. Chapter 2. An Impossible Beginning. Minutes after the ceremony concluded, the chapel emptied in a confused exodus. My mother insisted on speaking with me alone. She hustled me into a side room used for storing prayer books, the pastel walls clashing with her fuchsia dress. She closed the door, pinning me with a look of dismay. "Natalie, dear," she began, voice trembling, "I understand you're upset, but what on earth were you thinking?" I sank onto a small wooden bench, my wedding gown tangling around my feet. The stinging of tears started anew, but I forced calm into my voice. "Mom, Gregory left me," I whispered, broken. "He walked away without an ounce of remorse. I couldn't just stand there like a fool. I needed." She knelt before me, her carefully styled hair bobbing. "You needed to be loved," she finished softly. "I know. But marriage, Natalie? To a stranger." I pressed my lips together, hugging my arms. It was crazy, I admitted. I know that. But it's done now. She shook her head, tears glinting in her eyes. You can annul it, she said earnestly. It hasn't even been an hour. You're vulnerable. You can fix this. I hesitated, letting the possibility wash over me. Annulment, yes. It could wipe away the impulsive vow I'd just made. But the thought made my heart twist uncomfortably. Why, after all, had Nathaniel said yes? And why did a part of me cling to the notion that maybe, just maybe, this wild choice could lead somewhere unforeseen? Somewhere better than the heartbreak that loomed. I swallowed, standing up. I need to talk to him. I should at least figure out who he is before I decide anything. My voice wavered with uncertainty. With a deep sigh, my mother rose. She gently patted my hair, then kissed my forehead. I love you, Natalie. Please be careful. If you change your mind, we'll support you. You don't have to carry on with this madness just to prove a point. I nodded, feeling gratitude and frustration swirl within me. Then, mustering what dignity I had left, I moved to leave. My mother embraced me once more, then let me go. I emerged from the side room to find the chapel foyer nearly empty. The florist's bouquets still stood along the hallway, a mocking reminder of the wedding that should have been. In the far corner, leaning against a marble pillar, I spotted Nathaniel. He stood with his hands in his suit pockets, gazing at me with mild apprehension. My father was speaking to him in low tones, arms crossed. As I approached, my father turned, gave me a long, searching look, and then sighed. He nodded a curt greeting to Nathaniel, patted my shoulder, and walked away to check on the rest of the confused guests. Alone with my new husband, my eyes flicked to the ring on his finger. Gregory's ring. The irony threatened to suffocate me, so I forced myself to focus on Nathaniel's face. A tension line creased his brow, but he offered a small smile. How are you holding up? He asked quietly, his voice laced with concern. I let out a shaky laugh. I've been better, I said. I guess I should properly introduce myself. Natalie Carter, now apparently Natalie Harrison? He rubbed the back of his neck, an awkward gesture. Nathaniel Harrison, he repeated. You can call me Nathan. I'm a lawyer. Corporate law mostly. I was here as a +1 for a friend's cousin. Someone from your fiancé's side, I think? The invitation was last minute. I didn't expect all this. An odd sense of relief fluttered in me. He was normal, presumably stable, not some random troublemaker. I'm sorry, I said quickly. I put you in a terrible position. I was just heartbroken, furious. I did something insane. He shrugged. I can't say I expected to be married today, he replied, a wry smile tilting his lips. But when I saw you standing there so devastated, well, maybe I was a little insane too. A part of me couldn't bear to watch you be humiliated. Heat rose in my cheeks. So you did it out of pity? He considered. Pity might be part of it. But also, I don't know. Something in me said to go for it. I've never done anything so reckless, but you looked like you needed a lifeline and I wanted to help. I exhaled slowly, tears threatening again. I appreciate it really. But we can fix this if you want. We can seek an annulment. It's the logical thing. Nathan's gaze flicked downward. It probably is, he admitted. Yet I noticed he didn't immediately agree to it. Something in his expression, curiosity, intrigue, empathy, warned me that we might not settle for the easiest path. In that moment, the doors to the chapel opened, revealing a flurry of well-wishers turned spectators and my mother beckoning from afar. The world pressed in again. We had to greet people, endure questions, manage the fiasco. My father appeared at my side, gently guiding me toward the exit. The guests parted to let us pass, their faces etched with pity or gossip-fueled excitement. Nathan trailed beside me, a quiet sentinel. His presence, though foreign, was strangely comforting. Outside, the midday sun blinded me momentarily. The crisp spring air felt sharper than usual, as if the world realized how drastically my fate had changed. We paused beneath the grand portico, marble steps leading down to the street where a limousine waited, originally meant for my honeymoon departure with Gregory. My mother hustled forward, trying to gather the guests for some semblance of a polite exit. Apologies and disclaimers poured from her lips, but no one quite knew what to do. When the crowd finally dispersed, leaving only my parents, a few stragglers, Nathan and me, I faced him again. I guess I need to figure out, what now? I said softly, fiddling with the hem of my gown. He nodded, exhaling a long breath. Would you like to talk? Maybe get a coffee or, well, maybe something stronger might be in order. A fragile smile emerged. Coffee sounds good. I need time to think, but you deserve an explanation too. If you're my husband, even if only for an hour so far, you should at least know who I am beyond a meltdown at the altar. Agreed, he said, matching my small smile. I'm parked a block away. Let me just check with your parents if they're okay with me taking you somewhere. I felt a pang of both gratitude and embarrassment at how considerate he was being. My father overheard, stepping closer. Go talk, he said gently, his stern expression softened by compassion. We'll handle the aftermath here. Your mother and I will finish up with the venue staff and answer any remaining questions. Just be safe, Natalie. I nodded, tears pricking again at the corners of my eyes. Then, with a swirl of my cumbersome gown, I followed Nathan down the marble steps, past the ironically cheerful flower arrangements, and into the next phase of my life, one I never would have imagined in my most outlandish daydreams. Chapter 3: Coffee and Confessions. While the rest of the wedding party trickled away, carrying leftover bouquets and curiosity about the bizarre turn of events, Nathan and I climbed into his sleek, silver sedan. He removed his jacket, tossing it in the back seat, and I noticed the tension in his shoulders. It struck me that this was no less surreal for him. One moment he was a guest at a wedding, bored or maybe mildly interested, and the next he was a husband. My husband. We drove in silence for a few minutes. I stared at my reflection in the side mirror, my veil in disarray, mascara smudged from tears. The city streets blurred by, and I felt like I was floating, unmoored from reality. Eventually, Nathan parked near a small cafe, the kind with wooden chairs and an earthy smell of roasted beans. We stepped out, him in his formal suit minus the jacket, me still draped in white lace that felt increasingly absurd. People on the sidewalk gawked, some with amusement, others with pity. I clutched the edges of my gown, determined not to trip over the swirling train. Inside the cafe, the barista's eyes widened at the sight of a bride and groom. She exclaimed, "Congratulations," before noticing our haunted expressions. I forced a polite smile, though the word congratulations felt like a cruel joke. We ordered 2 cappuccinos and found a table in a quiet corner. Nathan offered to hold out my chair and I sank into it, grateful to rest for a moment. He sat across from me, leaning forward, elbows on the table. The cafe's gentle hum provided a refuge from the chaos we'd left behind. "So," he said, voice subdued, "you and Gregory had been together, how long?" "5 years." I answered, swirling the foam on my cappuccino with a spoon. My stomach was knotted, so I doubted I'd drink much. I thought it was heading for the typical, happily ever after. But he'd been distant lately. I should have known something was wrong. Nathan nodded, a sympathetic furrow in his brow. "Did he say why he left you for that other woman?" I exhaled, a mixture of bitterness and heartbreak flooding me. "Not really. He just said he couldn't marry me. Mentioned that an ex-girlfriend came back into his life. He said he had to follow his heart. I guess that meant ditching me at the altar." My voice cracked on the last few words and I bit my lip to keep from crying. Nathan's eyes shone with empathy. "That's cruel. You didn't deserve that." "Thank you." I managed to smile, though my eyes stung. "What about you? Why did you agree to do this? It's insane, right?" He ran a hand through his dark hair. "I wasn't lying when I said I'm not usually reckless. But I saw you so hurt and vulnerable. And something in me snapped. I've played it safe all my life. Got good grades, went to law school, never took chances in relationships. My fiancé left me a year ago. Apparently I wasn't exciting enough." He laughed grimly. "So I guess I know the feeling of being discarded. When I saw you alone up there, I thought, if I can help her not feel worthless, maybe that's worth the risk." A pang of empathy pulsed through me. "I'm sorry about your fiancé," I murmured, noticing the flicker of pain that crossed his features. "Thanks. It was rough, but I moved on. Well, mostly. Meeting you in that chapel. I had no clue I'd be caught in your heartbreak, too." His gaze dropped to my ring, Gregory's ring, still on my finger. "So now we're in a complicated situation." I nodded, fiddling with the lace on my gown. "We can fix it though if that's what we want. An annulment is straightforward if we act quickly." He was silent for a moment, eyes trailing over the swirl in his cappuccino. "Before we talk about that, can I ask something?" Sure, I said, bracing myself. He hesitated, then took a breath. When you asked me, will you marry me instead? Was it purely to salvage your pride? Or was there a part of you that truly wanted to find a connection with someone? The question caught me off guard. I blinked, unsure. I guess, I began slowly. I was humiliated, furious, heartbroken. I wanted to cling to something, anything, so I wouldn't drown in that betrayal. And you looked safe somehow. Like you'd treat me kindly, even if you thought I was crazy. I gave a shaky laugh. Maybe it was also me flipping the script on life. If Gregory could toss me aside at the last minute, I wanted to defy that outcome. To prove I wasn't powerless. He nodded, absorbing my words. I understand. Silence enveloped us, tension thickening. We each took a sip of coffee. My cappuccino was lukewarm by then, but I barely tasted it. The swirl of uncertainty, heartbreak, and unexpected closeness to this man gnawed at me. Eventually, Nathan cleared his throat. So, do you want an annulment? I stared at him, my heart pounding. Reason told me the answer was yes, absolutely. This was a fiasco. But something else, a tiny rebellious spark, made me hesitate. If we do that, it's like this never happened. Is that what you want? He paused, eyes flicking up to meet mine. I'm not sure. Part of me thinks we should, obviously. But another part wonders if we should see what happens if we don't. Life can be messy, and maybe there's a reason we ended up like this. My pulse quickened. You're not just pitying me? He offered a gentle smile. I'm not that noble, trust me. Yes, I felt sorry for you, but you're also intriguing. You have courage, even if it's laced with heartbreak. I guess I'm curious what kind of person you are beneath that heartbreak. A mixture of relief and apprehension coursed through me. I don't know if I can jump from heartbreak into something new. But if you're saying we can at least get to know each other before we rush to end this marriage, this bizarre, impulsive marriage, then maybe that's worth considering. He exhaled, tension easing from his shoulders. That's what I'm suggesting. We don't have to decide everything right now. We can give it a little time, see if we can stand each other or find common ground. If it's too weird, we can finalize an annulment. But if not, he let the sentence trail off. My chest felt oddly light, as though a small possibility for hope had ignited. Okay, I said quietly. We can try. And so it was decided. We would remain married for now, and see if something genuine could emerge from the wreckage of my wedding day. A wave of exhaustion crashed over me, and I realized I was still wearing my heavy gown. I glanced down at the white lace, feeling a pang of sadness at the memory of how carefully I'd chosen it with Gregory. Now it felt like a costume for a play that had ended. Nathan must have noticed my weariness. We should get you home, he said softly. You've had a hell of a day. I nodded, tears prickling. Yes, but my parents, the guests, the orchard reception, everything is in pieces now. I should at least inform them of my decision. He stood, offering me his hand. We can do that together. After all, we're in this together now. A strange comfort bloomed at his words. We walked out of the cafe, earning more stares from onlookers on the street. My reflection in the glass door was that of a bride holding hands with someone who wasn't the groom she'd planned for. Surreal. Yet somehow in that moment not entirely dreadful. As we climbed into the car again, I found myself exhaling a shaky breath. The day was far from over, and the road ahead promised complications I couldn't even predict. But at least I wasn't alone, overshadowed by humiliating solitude. For the first time since Gregory abandoned me, a small voice inside whispered that maybe I'd saved myself by leaping into the unknown. Chapter 4. Facing the Fallout. Word spread like wildfire. By the time Nathan and I returned to the wedding venue, the entire place buzzed with gossip. My mother had tried to salvage a semblance of normality. The reception area was half decorated with pastel tablecloths, half filled with guests who hovered uncertainly around the buffet. The DJ looked bored, standing by the booth, not sure if he should pack up or play music. When we entered, arms loosely linked, every head turned. Whispers and gasps fluttered across the crowd. I forced a polite smile, though my stomach churned. My father approached, his expression resigned. Natalie, I've explained the situation as best as I could, he said quietly. Most people are heading out. But a few insisted on speaking with you. My eyes landed on one such person. My Aunt Clara, a stern woman who had always disliked Gregory. She marched forward, scanning Nathan with a critical gaze. Well, this is unexpected, she declared. Then her expression softened as she saw my trembling lips. You poor dear. Are you all right? Tears welled, but I blinked them back. I'm managing, I whispered. She patted my shoulder, turned to Nathan and extended her hand. Clara Carter, the bride's aunt. And you must be the new fiancé? Husband? I'm losing track. Nathan dipped his head politely, shaking her hand. Nathaniel Harrison. I'm her husband. The words sounded strange even to him, judging by his hesitant tone. Aunt Clara pursed her lips, then offered a curt nod. I see. Well, do try not to break her heart. She's been through enough. With that, Aunt Clara pivoted away to corner the DJ, presumably telling him the music was unnecessary. I felt my cheeks burn. Everything was happening at warp speed. My entire future was unraveling and reforming in the space of hours. A few more relatives trickled over with concerned expressions. My cousin Emily offered a tearful hug, telling me she admired my courage. An old friend from high school stared wide-eyed, stuttering her way through congratulations that sounded more like condolences. Meanwhile, my mother hovered, trying to keep the mood from deteriorating further, though it was a lost cause. One figure stood out, Gregory's best man Paul, a longtime friend of his. He approached me, tension rippling in his posture. Natalie, he said, voice hushed. Greg left in a hurry. He said he's sorry for what it's worth. He asked me to gather his things and get them to him. He seemed sure you wouldn't want them. A fresh wave of heartbreak. He's right, I said, swallowing. I don't want anything of his. If he wants them, mail them. Paul hesitated, then glanced at Nathan. So this is the guy you married instead. There was no small measure of incredulity in his tone. Nathan returned the look calmly. I realize this is unconventional. Paul snorted. That's an understatement. All I can say is I hope you treat her better than Greg did. Because if not... He left the threat hanging, turned on his heel and walked away. I sagged against Nathan, physically and emotionally drained. The wedding that had begun with illusions of joy ended as a tragic carnival, where I was the central spectacle. I forced myself to remain upright, to accept pitying remarks and awkward well-wishes. But all I wanted was to crawl under the covers and forget the day. At last, the guests drifted out, some shaking their heads, others murmuring half-hearted goodbyes. The florist took the leftover flowers, the caterer packed up uneaten hors d'oeuvres. My father offered to handle final payments with the venue staff, telling me gently to go home and rest. My mother nodded in agreement, though she looked torn, as though she wanted to keep me under close watch in case I self-destructed further. By mid-afternoon, the once festive hall was deserted. The pink and cream drapery now seemed mocking, and the towering wedding cake, barely touched, loomed as a monument to broken promises. I stared at it, tears rising again. Nathan gently nudged me. Do you want to take a piece? Or should we just leave it? I laughed bitterly, watery eyes fixed on the frosty letters inscribed. Congratulations, Natalie and Gregory. Leave it, I whispered. It doesn't belong to me anymore. So we left, stepping outside into the bright sunlight. I squinted, feeling as if an eternity had passed since dawn. My father hurried over, pressing the keys to my car into my hand. I'll drive your mother home, he said. You do go. Natalie, are you sure you're all right? I mustered a wobbly smile. I'll survive, Dad. Thank you. He nodded, then glanced at Nathan. There was a flicker of uncertainty in my father's gaze, followed by a paternal acceptance. He extended his hand. Nathaniel, is it? Take care of my daughter, please. She's fragile right now. Nathan shook my father's hand firmly. I will, sir, he promised. My father offered a tight smile, then turned away to comfort my mother, who was dabbing her eyes with a handkerchief. Left alone with Nathan once more, I sighed. So, we're married, but we have nowhere to go. My house is half decorated for a newlywed couple. That is, for Gregory and me. Your place, I assume, is a bachelor pad. Maybe we should just go to a motel. My attempt at humor fell flat. Nathan shook his head. Let's at least go to your place, gather your things if you want to. Then we can figure out next steps. Or if you'd rather, we can go to my apartment. Up to you. I fumbled with the car keys torn. My home was a painful reminder of what I'd lost. Yet it was also the only place where I might find a shred of comfort. Let's go to my place, I decided softly. We can talk there. And so we did. I stripped out of my wedding gown, the one Gregory had insisted was perfect. I changed into a comfortable t-shirt and jeans, while Nathan waited in the living room, politely averting his gaze from any personal items that hinted at Gregory's presence. The tension was excruciating. When I emerged, we sat on the couch, an awkward distance between us. The silence pressed down. Finally, I blurted, "This is insane, right? Two strangers married by chance. You sure you don't want to run for the hills?" He managed a gentle smile. "I won't lie, this is the craziest thing I've ever done. But I'm not running. Are you?" I shook my head, a small ember of gratitude glowing inside me. "No. Not yet," I whispered. "But let's make a promise. If at any point either of us wants out, we'll talk it through, no drama, no guilt. Deal?" He extended his hand. "Deal." We shook on it, a businesslike gesture that felt oddly comforting. We spent the next hour discussing practicalities. Finances, living arrangements, how to inform the world about our bizarre union. We decided to keep it quiet for now. No social media announcements, no immediate legal changes beyond the marriage certificate. I needed time to breathe, to process. He had his job to consider, his image as a lawyer to maintain. At some point I realized how hungry I was. The day's stress had left me drained. I rummaged in the kitchen, but my fridge was nearly empty. Gregory and I were supposed to be leaving for a honeymoon, so we'd cleaned out groceries. With a soft laugh, Nathan suggested takeout from a nearby pizza joint. In a surreal twist, we ended our wedding day not with a honeymoon suite, but with cardboard boxes of pepperoni pizza, 2 beers, and the silence of my living room. We hardly spoke as we ate, each lost in thought. Occasionally our eyes met, the spark of shared confusion bridging the gap. By nightfall I offered to set up a guest bedroom for him. He insisted it was fine, he'd sleep on the couch if I wanted. But I insisted he deserve at least a bed. So we parted ways in the hallway, me retreating to the master bedroom that still smelled of Gregory's cologne, him stepping into the guest room. I closed the door and leaned against it, my heart pounding. The quiet house enveloped me, the illusions of my old life drifting away like dust motes in moonlight. I had a husband, but not the man I'd expected. The ring on my finger belonged to a vow undone, yet ironically reaffirmed by someone else. My entire existence felt turned upside down. I crawled into bed, tears flooding me anew. What if I was just compounding heartbreak upon heartbreak? The weight of the question pressed on me, but as I drifted into a restless sleep, one small comfort remained. At least Nathan seemed to care, to empathize. Perhaps that was enough to get through tomorrow and the day after until I found my bearings again. Chapter 5. First steps toward something real. Morning arrived in a haze of gray light filtering through my curtains. I lay awake, blinking at the ceiling, remembering in slow increments what had transpired. The pang of heartbreak threatened to crush me. But I inhaled deeply, resolved to face the day with cautious determination. In the kitchen I found Nathan rummaging through cupboards searching for a coffee mug. He wore the same clothes from yesterday minus the suit jacket, but his tie was loosened and he looked a bit rumpled. A pang of guilt reminded me that I hadn't offered him fresh clothes. We truly were strangers, sharing a roof out of a spontaneous vow. He glanced over as I entered. "Morning," he said softly, eyes scanning my face for signs of how I was holding up. "Morning," I replied, voice husky from sleep. I grabbed my hair, which was a tangled mess, and attempted to brush it aside. "Sleep okay?" He gave a slight shrug. "As well as one can after such a day." "You?" "Same." We shared a wan smile, the memory of heartbreak heavy in the room. Then I pointed out the coffee supplies. "There's instant coffee. Sorry if that's not your style." He chuckled. "Instant is fine. I'm not picky." He paused, then gestured to the hallway. "I realize I don't have fresh clothes here. I could go back to my place, change, then come back if you want me around, or I can give you space." My throat tightened at the mention of him leaving. Yesterday I might have clung to him out of desperation. Today I wasn't sure. Did I want him near or did I need solitude? I swallowed. "I wouldn't mind if you came back," I said quietly, surprising myself. "But you do what you need to do." He nodded. "I'll head home, shower, change, and pick up a few essentials. Then we can figure out how to navigate this." He offered a faint smile. "That is, if you want me to come back." I gazed at him, noticing how kind his eyes were, how considerate his manner. Perhaps in a twisted sense, fate had aligned me with someone who understood heartbreak and caution, who wasn't out to judge me as a fool for my impulsiveness. I'd like that, I managed, voice soft. A subtle tension eased in his shoulders. I'll be back soon. He gathered his car keys, offered a polite wave and left. The silence he left behind felt oddly empty. I took a moment to reflect on how, in less than 24 hours, I'd grown reliant on a man I'd never known before. It was unnerving yet comforting. As the morning wore on, text messages and calls began bombarding my phone. Friends demanded an explanation. Relatives offered condolences or scolded me for my rashness. I offered minimal responses, stating I was fine and would talk later. Then I decided to take a shower, wash away the remnants of my wedding day. The hot water and soap were a literal cleansing of heartbreak, though I knew no amount of scrubbing could wipe away the emotional scars. When Nathan returned around noon, he carried a small duffel bag and wore casual jeans with a crisp black shirt. My heart did an odd flip at how normal he looked, like a friend dropping by instead of a newly minted husband. He set the bag down, raising an eyebrow at me. Surviving. I exhaled a shaky laugh. Barely. But yes. I gestured to the living room. You can store your stuff in there for now. I guess we'll figure out if you want the guest room as your own space, or if we do something else. I'm still adjusting to the concept that I have a spouse living here. He nodded, a hint of amusement mingling with empathy. Same here. We sat on the couch, the tension slightly less suffocating than the day before. I noticed he'd brought groceries, milk, eggs, bread, some vegetables. A wave of gratitude and embarrassment washed over me. You didn't have to do that, I murmured. He shrugged. Seemed like the polite thing to do. If we're sharing a home, might as well stock the fridge. Sharing a home. The phrase rattled in my mind, but I forced a small smile. Thank you. For a while, we discussed practical matters. How we'd handle finances, we decided to keep them separate for the moment, how we'd answer questions from colleagues or family, and how we'd navigate sleeping arrangements. The plan was to remain in separate bedrooms, giving each other space at least until we felt less like strangers. Somewhere in that conversation the phone rang. I groaned, expecting more invasive questions. But when I answered, it was Gregory's voice that crackled through the speaker, sending a bolt of pain through my chest. Natalie, he said, sounding hesitant. I know you probably hate me, but I just wanted to see if you're okay. I closed my eyes, swallowing my anger and heartbreak. Nathan watched me, concerned. I'm alive, if that's what you're asking, I replied icily. What do you want? Gregory sighed. I'm sorry. I know that doesn't fix anything. I messed up. But I had to follow my heart. I couldn't go through with a marriage if I wasn't sure I loved you. Tears pricked my eyes. So you let me plan everything, let me stand there in front of everyone, and only at the final second did you realize you didn't love me? He fell silent for a beat. I guess so, he finally said, voice subdued. Look, I didn't know you'd marry some random guy. That's crazy, Natalie. Are you sure you know what you're doing? A surge of defensive anger flared. I'm not sure of anything, I snapped. But you lost the right to question my choices when you humiliated me and walked away. My breath hitched. Don't call me again. Without waiting for a response, I hung up, hands trembling. Nathan reached out, gently covering my hand with his. I allowed the contact, finding solace in his steady presence. He wanted to see if I was okay, I spat bitterly. After he shredded my heart, now he's worried? The nerve. Nathan nodded, sympathy in his gaze. He has no claim on you anymore. I inhaled, focusing on the warmth of Nathan's hand. No, he doesn't. For the first time since Gregory abandoned me, I felt a glimmer of something akin to closure. His betrayal was final. Whatever illusions I harbored about reconciling with him were dead. My path lay somewhere else, maybe with Nathan or maybe on my own. But at least I knew Gregory's chapter in my life was done. We parted hands, a touch too aware of each other's presence. Then with a resolute breath I said, let's figure out lunch. I'm starving. Nathan let out a soft laugh. Good idea. And so the first official day of our marriage ended with small, practical steps. We cooked a simple lunch together, scrambled eggs, toast, and a side salad. We ate, exchanged gentle conversation about our pasts, carefully skirting any talk of intense feelings. The sun set, painting the sky in orange and pink. That night, I drifted into sleep with a little less sorrow, a faint spark of hope flickering inside me. Chapter 6. Strangers No More. Over the next few weeks, Nathan and I lived in a strange bubble. We were married on paper, but in many ways, we were still acquaintances learning each other's quirks. I discovered that he was a meticulous houseguest, always cleaning up after himself, offering to help with chores, and stepping aside if he sensed I needed solitude. He worked at a mid-sized law firm downtown. His hours were sometimes long, and I resumed my own job at a publishing company after taking a short leave for what was supposed to be my honeymoon. My colleagues offered me sympathetic looks, having heard the gossip about my wedding fiasco. I avoided details, simply stating that I was fine. At home, Nathan and I settled into a rhythm. We'd share occasional dinners. We'd watch an episode of a TV series or quietly read in the living room. My mother called less frequently, having accepted my decision to remain in this unexpected marriage for the time being. My father visited once, giving Nathan a guarded once-over, then nodded as if approving the man who'd stepped in to protect me from total despair. One evening, about a month into our arrangement, we found ourselves on the couch, finishing some takeout. My hair was pulled into a casual ponytail, while Nathan wore sweatpants and a t-shirt, a far cry from his formal law attire. The comfort of it struck me. We looked like a normal couple winding down after a day's work. Except we were far from normal. "Natalie," he said, setting aside his food. "I've been thinking about our situation. We haven't discussed the future in a while. Are you leaning toward an annulment?" I paused, heart flipping. In that month we'd grown oddly close. He'd become my confidant, my emotional support, and a friend who teased me about my messy hair or my love of cheesy romance novels. I had no illusions that we were deeply in love, but I found comfort in him and I sensed he found something worthwhile in me too. "I'm not sure," I said quietly, meeting his gaze. "At first I was certain we'd annul. But the more time I spend with you, the less I want to let that option define us." He exhaled, relief flickering in his expression. "I feel the same. I mean, it's not like we're suddenly star-crossed lovers, but I enjoy your company. And I'd be lying if I said I wasn't getting attached." A warmth spread through my chest. "I am too," I admitted. "But, are we just clinging to each other because we've both been hurt? Or is there a chance this could grow into something real?" He smiled wryly. "Is that rhetorical, or do you want my honest guess?" "Honest guess," I said. "I think it can grow real if we let it," he said softly. "But we have to be sure we're not using each other as a safety net. We should take it slow, see if our feelings develop naturally. No rush. If, in a few months, we realize we're happier apart, we can part ways amicably." I nodded, my heart drumming with cautious hope. "That sounds fair." He studied me for a moment, then reached out, tucking a stray strand of hair behind my ear. The gesture made my pulse jump. We'd been so careful to maintain a respectful distance, but now a subtle shift in the air suggested we might be ready to test boundaries. "Natalie," he murmured, voice gentle, "can I kiss you?" My breath caught. This was a question so simple, yet loaded with the weight of our improbable marriage. My lips parted. "Yes," I whispered. His hand cupped my cheek and he leaned in. Our lips met in a tender, tentative kiss. My eyes fluttered shut, tears threatening. It wasn't the fiery passion of a whirlwind romance, but it held a delicate promise, a potential for something deeper. When we parted, a rush of emotions swirled through me, relief, longing, nervousness. I opened my eyes to see him gazing at me, brow creased in a question unspoken. "Are you okay?" I answered with a shaky smile. "I'm all right." He brushed his thumb across my cheek, then pulled me into a gentle hug. We sat there in the soft glow of a table lamp, hearts beating in uncertain rhythm. For the first time I let myself imagine a future. Maybe not the one I planned, but one that could be built from empathy, mutual respect, and the slow, steady burn of trust. That night, I kissed him again at the door to our separate bedrooms, lingering a moment before we parted. A swirl of anticipation and trepidation filled me as I slid under the covers. My life was no longer overshadowed solely by heartbreak. It was also tinged with the faint shimmer of possibility. Chapter 7. Trials of Love and Loss. No fledgling relationship is without trials. The next few months tested Nathan's and my fragile bond. My mother continued to worry, occasionally pushing me to finalize an annulment, especially when she heard rumors that Gregory's new relationship was unraveling. She even hinted that Gregory might want me back if I forgave him. But I refused to consider it. The trust was shattered. At work, I faced coworkers' intrusive questions, some pitying me for the fiasco, others curious about my new husband. I was intentionally vague, stating that we were still figuring things out. The rumor mill churned, but eventually the novelty of my drama faded. Nathan and I discovered each other's quirks. He had a habit of reorganizing the dishwasher to optimize space, which initially annoyed me until I realized it was his methodical nature. I left my socks around the house in a flurry, which he teased me about. We navigated minor conflicts like who took out the trash or how to handle finances. Slowly we found a rhythm. But deeper challenges arose when Gregory tried to contact me again, this time with a letter he sent to my parents' address. I read it, hands trembling. "Natalie, I know I messed up. Please give me a chance to explain. I never meant to hurt you. I see now that leaving you at the altar was the biggest mistake of my life. I still love you. I always will. If you can find it in your heart to forgive me, I'll do anything. Gregory." I stared at the letter, rage mingled with sorrow. My heart hammered. He was too late, far too late. But guilt nibbled at me. Had I not rushed into a new marriage out of vengeance, or at least out of self-protection? Did I owe him a final closure? Nathan found me that evening, curled up on the couch, the letter clutched in my hand. He noticed my tears. "What happened?" he asked softly. I handed him the letter. He read it, his jaw tightening. A flicker of jealousy and fear crossed his features. "You're not considering going back to him, right?" I shook my head vehemently. "No. I just hate that he's trying to worm his way back." I felt forced to move on, but it was his doing. He doesn't deserve a second chance. Relief flickered in Nathan's eyes. "Then ignore him. Or respond telling him it's over. Whichever helps you heal." I sighed, burying my face in my hands. I don't know if I have the strength to face him. But maybe ignoring him is a type of closure. He walked out on me after all. My voice trembled. Nathan eased beside me, placing a comforting hand on my back. "If you want to respond, I support you. If not, that's okay. Just know you're not alone." Tears slipped down my cheeks and I leaned against him, grateful for his steady presence. "Thank you," I whispered. "I'm sorry this is even an issue. You deserve a drama-free relationship, not baggage from my past." He tilted my chin up, meeting my gaze. "I have baggage too," he said with a gentle smile. "We'll figure it out piece by piece." Despite the emotional roller coaster that night, I found solace in his arms. For the first time, we didn't retreat to separate bedrooms. Instead, we lay together in my bed, quietly talking and sharing deeper stories. About his lonely childhood as an only child, how he wanted siblings but never had any, about my father's orchard and how I used to climb trees as a kid, daydreaming about my future. The vulnerability we shared forged a stronger connection than any rushed vow ever could. We stopped short of going further physically, both of us wanting to ensure we weren't rushing. But the comfort of sleeping in each other's arms was enough for now. It was a gentle affirmation that maybe, out of heartbreak, we could build something genuine. Chapter 8. A Choice of the Heart. As the months turned into half a year, Nathan and I solidified a sense of unity. We functioned like a newlywed couple adjusting to life together, despite our unconventional origins. My father teased me affectionately that maybe the love you fight hardest for is the one that matters most. My mother eventually softened toward Nathan, impressed by his devotion. Then came a fateful evening when Nathan approached me after dinner, a serious glint in his eyes. "Natalie, can we talk in the living room?" he asked, his voice quietly urgent. Concerned, I followed him, expecting bad news. We sat on the couch, the same one where we'd once had stilted, uncertain conversations. Now it felt like the heart of our shared home. He cleared his throat. "I got a job offer," he said. "A big firm across the state wants me to head up a new division. It's a great opportunity, more pay, more prestige. But it would mean relocating." My heart lurched. "Relocating? How far?" "About 3 hours away, near the capital. It's not an impossible distance, but it would require a move if I take it. They want me to start in a month." I swallowed, dread coiling. "So, what does that mean for us?" He exhaled, running a hand through his hair. "That's the question. I love you, Natalie," he said, voice trembling slightly. I'm not sure exactly when that changed from care to love, but it did. And I can't imagine going without you. But we never planned to share our entire lives, did we? We got married in a day of chaos and we said we'd see if it worked. Now we're at a crossroads. Tears welled in my eyes. The confession that he loved me filled me with warmth but also fear. Did I love him too? In the quiet moments of cooking together, the gentle kisses, the nights we lay whispering secrets, I felt something blossom. I nodded, tears slipping free. I think I love you too, I whispered. It's terrifying but real. He reached for my hand, eyes shining with relief and emotion. Then maybe we should do this properly, build a life together, not just out of some impulsive vow. Would you consider moving with me? Or is that too big a leap? My mind whirled. I had my job at the publishing company, my family, my orchard visits, my entire life here. But the thought of letting Nathan go felt like a fresh heartbreak. I can find a new job, I said softly, heart pounding. I can visit my family on weekends. We can make it work if that's what we choose. A slow smile spread across his face, though tears glistened in his eyes as well. So we're really doing this, he murmured. A new start in a new city as actual husband and wife? I let out a watery laugh. Yes, I want that. I want to choose you. Not because of heartbreak, but because I want to build a real marriage with you. He pulled me into his arms and I melted against him, tears of joy mingling with residual sorrow from the past. We kissed, a deeper, more certain kiss than any we'd shared. It was acceptance, resolution, a vow renewed, not forced by shame or impulse but by genuine affection. Epilogue. A love story unscripted. 6 months later, I found myself in a cozy apartment in the capital city, bright sunlight streaming through large windows that overlooked a bustling street. The boxes from our move were mostly unpacked, revealing a blend of my old life and Nathan's bachelor furniture. We replaced the living room couch, where so many uncertain conversations took place, with a new one we chose together. Nathan thrived in his new position at the law firm, coming home each day with stories of challenging cases and interesting colleagues. I landed a job at a local literary magazine, editing submissions from writers hoping to see their words in print. It was fulfilling, a fresh chapter for my career. And I loved hearing the hum of traffic, exploring new cafes, forging a new identity as half of a married couple in a city that didn't know my heartbreak. Occasionally, I recalled the day that changed everything, standing in a white gown, abandoned, and the split-second choice to ask a stranger, "Will you marry me instead?" I still experienced pangs of disbelief that I had been so bold, so reckless. Yet here we were, forging a deeper love that had blossomed from that single impulsive seed. We still had our challenges. We argued about finances or how to handle holidays with our respective families. We navigated misunderstandings about his intense work schedule or my lingering insecurities from Gregory's betrayal. But we faced them together, reminding ourselves that our union began in adversity, and we'd proven we could weather storms. One evening, as we sipped tea on our balcony, the city lights twinkling below, Nathan turned to me, eyes warm. "Do you ever regret that day?" he asked softly, referencing the wedding fiasco. I leaned my head against his shoulder, inhaling the crisp night air. "Sometimes I regret the pain, but not what happened next, because it led me to you." He pressed a kiss to my temple. "Same," he murmured. "Sometimes the strangest twists in life reveal the greatest blessings." I gazed at my ring, the one Gregory had chosen but that Nathan wore for me. We talked about replacing it with something truly ours, but part of me relished the symbol of transformation, that heartbreak can be reclaimed, reforged into a new promise. As the city lights sparkled, I allowed myself a moment of quiet reflection. I imagined an alternate reality where I married Gregory, only to discover his unfaithfulness later, locked in a loveless marriage. But fate had intervened, offering me a chance to rewrite my story. I took it. And from that bold, reckless leap, I found an unscripted love that resonated deeper than anything I'd planned. Life remained unpredictable, but I'd learned that sometimes the best stories arise when the original script is torn apart. In those gaps, we discover the raw potential of the human heart, to heal, to trust again, and to love in ways we never foresaw. And as Nathan's arm tightened around me on that balcony, I felt a quiet certainty that our improbable love story was only just beginning.